morning, and welcome to Beware Spoilers. I am Adam. It is 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving to work. For those of you who are finding us via the new blog post system that I've been implementing, welcome. Because I figure that getting the ability to tag it, the podcast, in better ways to make it easier to search is probably the easiest way to get more listeners. So here we are. If you're listening on iTunes, please give us 5 stars. That would help us out a lot. We're trying to get more listeners. We can do more cool shit. And I think we have a more accelerated timeline for the short than previously anticipated. I think we're looking at, we want to have it locked by January 30th. We want to have a finished, locked cut by January 30th. We have 2 months to shoot a 20-minute short. It doesn't sound like a ton of time, but I think it's not exactly a complex thing. It's not like we have to sit here. There's very little visually to it. That was a big complaint that I got when I had the script ready. It was make it more visually. I talked about this 2 days ago. If you want to go back and listen to that part. And I think the decision I came to was we are not going to alter it. We're just going to go against the what's it called? The advice and just do what we want to do anyway. I think that's what we're going to go with. So, we want to get that going. And short films cost money. Because you want to pay your actors. And yeah, it costs money. So, yeah, we got to find actors too. That's the other fun part. Anyway, so what we have today is Andor, episode 11, which is a little bit of falling action after the last episode, whereas like if the last episode was the climax, this is them after climax, kind of trying to figure out what to do next. And Andor has very little to actually do in this episode, and I think that works to the benefit of this show, because Andor doing his thing is great, but going into the finale where we're setting up where everything's going to go, and it feels like everything's converging on Ferrix. His mom dying is kind of going to be the inciting incident for the finale, where like his mom dies, so he's going to go back to Ferrix for the funeral. The Imperials know his mom died, so they're laying a trap for him. So when he goes back to Ferrix, he ends up, falling into this trap and getting captured. It's, I feel like he's not dumb. It's not that he's not dumb, but like when you have a situation like this, that's this fluid, I don't know if he knows about what's going on Ferrix, where his mom, I don't think he knows Bix has been captured and interrogated by the Empire and tortured by the Empire. I don't think he knows that, if I remember correctly. I think that's all still kind of, nebulous or outside of his purview. Now, the idea that we're seeing everything else around him, I'm setting it up, and I really like this. The debate that happened last week with the 50 men that are going to be massacred as a result of not telling. I forgot what the guy's name is. Who ISB knows about the guy who's going to be like the rebel cell. They know about him, and they're going to let them go into a trap and massacre them all. And then the question becomes for what's his name for Luthen, do we just let them wander into that trap, or do we warn them so that way they can kind of avoid it? And I think the idea that Luthen comes to is we just let them go into it, because if we let 50 men die, it shows them that we don't care about, number one, if it makes them think our numbers are bigger if they think we knew about the trap, and number two, if they don't, they think they've done more damage than they have. So it's a mind game, kind of. And when he confronts Saw Gerrera about this, and Forrest Whitaker is just, I love Forrest Whitaker in this role, as Saw Gerrera. And I think that one of the things that they don't really explore enough with Saw is that he is, for all intents and purposes, a dark side version of, what's his name? He's a dark side version of, or a light side version of Darth Vader. Because like he is the Darth Vader to the rebellion, where he is, he's slowly become more machine than man. He's insane. He's willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what the cost of men. And it's that kind of thing. And I think showing him have a little bit of humanity here in the early days of the rebellion really helps soften his image a little bit, and make it where it's not like he is kind of just like, like it makes him feel more, more human, in a weird way. And I think it's an interesting thing I'm going with. Mon Mothma and her daughter, I didn't think was going to hit me as hard as it has been, over the last few episodes. Because in the last episode, we had the guy who was like, look, my son's 14. Can you arrange an introduction between your daughter and my son? And now in this episode we see them, and her daughter is in this kind of like weird like group that wants to kind of reinstate the old ways. Like, they want the more traditional, which, tends to come with the rise of fascism, the rise of traditional values, the rise of, people being subservient to others. And she's in this group that wants that. And they're having this meeting, and it's just this heartbreaking moment to see the mom and the daughter be so diametrically opposed ideologically. Wow, it took me 3 attempts to get through that. I'm tired. And for them to, to tell this kind of just, I don't want to say depressing, but it is kind of depressing. Like, like this look at them, and then for her to be in this situation, kind of lay out, look, I don't really have any other options, and he's offering to, help me out financially, and the Empire is going to come looking at my finances soon, and they're going to see I'm funneling money in places that they probably don't want me funneling money, Luthen, and I love the idea that, like, she really hates this position she's been put in, but even the cause is more important than even her daughter, where she's like, look, I have to, like, this is the point where I have to go all in on this. I cannot, go halfway anymore. I have to go all in. And that is such a great moment, I think, for her, because it's not just her going all in on the rebellion, but it's her going all in on the rebellion in the most heartbreaking way, because it's not like you can see her and it's like, hey, do you want to sell your daughter to me? Good, sold. What's your minimum bid? It's like, no, it's this moment where she's like, in the last episode, we see her, like, she gets the offer, like, hey, why don't you arrange your daughter to meet my son? And she's like, get out, my mind won't change. And now here we are an episode later, after she's found out that the Empire is going to start coming for her. She's like, look, I don't really have another choice, and he will help me fix my finances, to make them look more in order for when the Empire does come looking and investigating. And it's one of those things where it's just so heartbreaking. And I think that all the stuff with Andor just doesn't quite hit as well as it does in previous episodes. Because at this point, he is now out, and he's like one of 2 survivors. And I would have liked to have seen more of what caused the rest of them to have died, that would have been an interesting thing to look at and be like, oh shit, well, you know, why did these two live? You know, how did these two luck out and be the last two standing that they know of? And now he's gonna go to Ferrex, and you know, the other guy's gonna go do God knows what, and then end up in the rebellion in Rogue One. And it's such a, you know, and that whole bit with the alien was kind of amusing, but I don't think we necessarily needed it. I don't think there's necessarily a point where we're like, yeah, I need more kind of comedic relief aliens, and that fucking robot, all depressed, like the Eeyore droid that's all depressed, like he was depressed and upset and kind of just downtrodden before his mother died, and then after his mother dies, oh my god, that fucking robot is so sad. Like, it's just so heartbreaking to watch this little robot. It's like a little kid. It doesn't understand death, and it's like, what the fuck? But it's like, you think about it, like, well, that kind of makes sense. It's a home care robot. Why would it need to know about, like, I mean, maybe it would need to know about death. I don't know, but whatever. It's such a great little bit where it's like this droid is just so crestfallen and heartbroken over the death of his mom, that it's like, it's just so well done. Where do I think the finale is going? Is the question that is on my mind right now. Where do I think the finale is going? I think that we're headed into a major conflict in the, you know, on Ferrex. I think that that's where this goes. We have to have this conflict on Ferrex. We have to have, what's it called? And to that end, there needs to be, I think that Cyril doesn't come out of this season. I would say Deidre maybe doesn't come out of this season. Because I do think that this season is just, you know, introduction to Thrawn before Thrawn is, you know, the bad guy next year. So I think that's the best way to handle this. I was surprised, like, although that said, it is very possible that, well, no, but if he's not the bad guy in the final episode, we probably wouldn't see him this season. Like, it is just, you know, it's just, I would like to have seen a little more there to, what's it called, to kind of set it up where, like, you know, we have this whole thing where it's like we have this mass convergence on Ferrex of everyone kind of involved in this show, kind of headed to Ferrex all at once. And Luthen's escape after he talks to Saw is just fantastic. Where it's like he's like, oh, I'm part of the Alderaanian Trade Federation or whatever the hell it's called, and it's like, you know, our Traders Guild, and he's like, he sends the thing, and he's sitting there waiting, and they send a bunch of projectiles out to the behind him into the ship, into the Imperial ship, and destroys the tractor beam. It's such a great shot. And then, you know, for the, like, this episode felt the most like a Star Wars show of the 11 episodes, because I think it's the first time we actually see, like, TIE fighters in combat in the entire show. And I think it's also the first time we see stormtroopers in combat too. There were stormtroopers in this episode, and I was like, they're just kind of menacing, and it's great because it's like, we know how silly the stormtroopers can be, like getting their asses kicked by a bunch of teddy bears on Andor, and you know, that kind of thing. But this idea that they are this what's it called? This giant, like, I mean, I just had a dumb non sequitur I thought, but like if they built a Death Star in outside of a moon of a gas giant, that Death Star would almost certainly fuck up the gravity of that thing. I think people have probably expressed that before, but if you have a space station the size of a moon, it will almost certainly fuck up the gravity of whatever system it goes into, and it really doesn't need a super weapon. It's just a giant, massive hunk of metal going into a spaceship, going into a system. But the idea that, they've been kind of a joke. They're not great shots. They're not good at their job. They always fuck things up. They're not helpful in any meaningful way, and all that kind of stuff that we've heard, for years now about Star Wars. It's like, for them to now be this thing where it's like you see them and you're like, oh shit. Like, because up until now, when we see Imperials, we're not looking at Stormtroopers. We're looking at ISB. And when you bring in the Stormtroopers, you're bringing in the big guns, for lack of a better word, because they are, the Army. We're bringing the Army in instead of bringing in basically the KGB. Or the CIA. Because that's what the ISB is. The ISB is just a three-letter kind of intelligence agency. And it is kind of all-encompassing of all the, the organizations around the world that we don't like to think about too much because they're definitely intruding into our daily lives, whether we know it or not. Like, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, the KGB, all of these kind of things. And it's that, it is a interesting thing that's like, once we see the Stormtroopers come out, something big's gonna happen. And they're scarier in the same way that, like, when they did The Mandalorian, the Stormtroopers weren't the threat. The Stormtroopers were never a threat in The Mandalorian. It was always, here are the Death Troopers. Here's an android version of them that's infinitely more competent and can break through blast doors with their fists. Like, here's something else that's scarier. But we don't have that here, really. So I think it works with the Stormtroopers kind of fulfilling that role. But we'll wrap up there for today. We will be back possibly later tonight with the menu, depending on how I'm feeling. Because I'm tired. I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm tired. And I'm not super excited about the menu, where I'm like, yeah, let's go see the menu and do that. And it's like, if I don't see the menu, I feel like I'm not really missing too much. It's not like Avatar, where it's like, I feel like that's a big one that I really should see, even if I don't really want to. I feel like the menu I can definitely skip. And what else have we got going on? Next week, I think Sunday, is the arrival of Star Wars Convergence, the latest High Republic novel. That will be going. We'll be doing a review of that. We will have a review of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, specifically Violet, because Scarlet I didn't buy. I bought Violet. I don't know how big the version differences are between them. The reviews have been okay, but it's not exactly what I thought it's exactly what I thought they would be. But at the same time, not what I thought they would be. So all of that coming up, plus the Fablemans is coming up, and I've been working on my top 10 list. A few movies have gotten dropped out of the top 10 list. A few movies have reshuffled positions. And we've lost, there's been some late year additions to the top 10. I think really all that's left is, Descendant, which has a possibility of ending up on there, White Noise, which has a possibility of ending up on there, because I do love Noah Baumbach. Who was the other one? The Fablemans. I feel like there was Bardo, the new Alejandro Inarritu movie, and there's one more, Avatar. Are the only ones that have the possibility of ending up in the top 10 list. But we'll wrap up there for today. So, until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.